In the rugged terrain of the Mesa, where rolling hills meet vast skies, the Mesa Ranger emerged as a vital protector of the land. Known for his unwavering commitment to both wildlife and local cattle, he often patrolled the expansive ranches that dotted the landscape. His days were filled with ensuring that the balance of nature was maintained, watching over herds and safeguarding them from dangers lurking in the shadows. With keen eyes and a heart full of determination, the ranger understood that every animal had its role in this delicate ecosystem. He spent countless hours traversing dusty trails on horseback, eager to spot any signs of trouble. Whether it was a mountain lion prowling too close to a calf or a lost animal wandering away from its herd, he was always ready to lend a helping hand. The locals admired him not just for his bravery but also for his deep respect for all living creatures. Children in nearby towns looked up to him as a hero, dreaming of one day following in his footsteps. However, amid this admiration lay an undercurrent of tension. Rumors swirled about the cattle king, whose ambitions threatened to disrupt the peace. Little did they know that soon their worlds would collide in ways they could never have imagined. One fateful morning, as the sun cast golden rays across the rugged mountains, the Mesa Ranger set out on his usual patrol. The air was crisp and still, filled with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. However, that peace was shattered when he spotted a shadowy form lying motionless among the rocks. His heart sank as he rode closer, realizing it was a calf, trapped and crushed beneath a fallen boulder. The ranger quickly dismounted and assessed the situation. The young calf struggled to breathe, its eyes wide with fear and pain. He could feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. This was not just any animal, it was part of a local rancher's herd, vital to their livelihood. Without hesitation, he knew he had to act. With tremendous effort, he tried to lift the heavy stone but found it too cumbersome. The ranger scanned his surroundings for help and devised a plan. Using branches and rocks as leverage, he finally managed to move the boulder just enough for the calf to wriggle free. As it stumbled away, weak but alive, relief washed over him. The moment reminded him why he loved this job, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, even in the face of growing threats from the cattle king. With the calves' distress calls echoing in his ears, the Mesa Ranger felt a surge of urgency. Time was of the essence, and he knew he had to act quickly. First, he assessed the boulder's position, noting how it leaned precariously on a rocky outcrop. It was clear that lifting it directly would be dangerous, both for him and for the calf. Instead, he looked around for anything that could help him. Spotting a sturdy branch nearby, he grabbed it and wedged it under the boulder as a lever. He pushed down hard, but the rock barely budged. Determined not to give up, he searched for more tools in nature's toolbox. He found smaller stones and stacked them under the boulder to create a fulcrum. With each effort, beads of sweat formed on his forehead, but he remained focused. After several attempts and with a grunt of exertion, he finally managed to shift the boulder just enough for the calf to wriggle free. As it stumbled away from danger, the ranger felt immense relief mixed with pride. It was moments like these that fueled his dedication, knowing that his bravery not only saved an innocent life but also reinforced his role as a guardian of the mesa. As word spread about the ranger's heroic act, another name surfaced in hushed conversations around campfires: the cattle king. This powerful figure loomed large over the local ranching community, a man known for his wealth and ambition. With a sprawling ranch that stretched across the mesa, he wielded considerable influence and had a reputation for getting what he wanted, often bending the rules to suit his needs. Accusations of cattle rustling followed him like shadows. Many ranchers whispered that he was involved in stealing livestock from smaller operations, claiming they couldn't compete with his resources and manpower. Despite these claims, the cattle king always seemed to evade justice, using his connections to intimidate those who dared speak out against him. His presence was felt everywhere, from the bustling markets to the quiet pastures where ranchers worked tirelessly. Farmers feared him, but some also admired his ability to grow a successful business in a tough environment. As tensions rose, the ranger knew he would have to confront this formidable opponent. Together with the community, they stood on the brink of a battle that could determine the fate of their land and its creatures, setting the stage for an inevitable clash between good and greed. The Cattle King's rise to power was steeped in controversy, rooted in a history of conflict with both the Mesa Ranger and local ranchers. Years ago, he had started as a humble cattleman, but his ambition led him to acquire more land and resources than his competitors. As he expanded his empire, he became known for not just his business acumen but also for using underhanded tactics to eliminate those who stood in his way. Many ranchers accused him of stealing cattle during the night or spreading rumors to drive competition away. The ranger, having witnessed these injustices firsthand, often intervened on behalf of the small ranchers, earning their respect and loyalty. This only intensified the Cattle King's disdain for him, leading to confrontations that revealed their conflicting values, one driven by greed and power, the other by integrity and duty. As tensions mounted, the Cattle King turned increasingly aggressive, employing threats and intimidation to silence those who dared to challenge him. The ranger knew that standing up to this powerful figure would require not just bravery but also unity from the community. With their livelihoods at stake, the stage was set for a showdown between the gallant protector of the Mesa and the tyrannical Cattle King, each determined to secure their vision for the land. As the days passed, the atmosphere in the Mesa grew thick with tension. Ranchers whispered about the Cattle King's latest schemes, and apprehension filled the air like a storm cloud on the horizon. They had seen too many of their neighbors lose livestock and land to his ruthless tactics, and fear began to ripple through the community, urging them to unite or risk losing everything. The Mesa Ranger, aware of both the rising fears and the strength of community bonds, decided to hold a meeting at the local saloon where worried ranchers gathered for support. He encouraged them to share their stories of confrontation with the Cattle King and emphasized the importance of standing together against bullying. As they spoke up, their resolve strengthened, a renewed sense of purpose began to emerge. However, as they rallied their spirits, so too did the Cattle King prepare for conflict. His men roamed the area, watching closely for any signs of rebellion. On a moonlit night, he convened his own group of ranchers loyal to him, boasting that he would crush any uprising and maintain control over his empire. The stage was set for an inevitable clash. Two powerful forces were on a collision course, each determined to secure their vision for the Mesa's future. The Rangers' principles and bravery loomed large against the backdrop of looming danger, as all awaited what would come next. The fateful day arrived when tension erupted into a violent confrontation. The Mesa Ranger, standing tall, confronted the Cattle King in a dimly lit clearing that had become a battlefield of their conflicting ideals. Words were exchanged, heated and sharp as knives, each man glaring with determination. The ranger stood firm, advocating for justice and the rights of local ranchers, while the Cattle King's anger simmered just beneath the surface. Suddenly, in a fit of rage, the Cattle King pulled out a branding iron glowing red from the fire. In an act of sheer defiance, he lunged at the ranger, aiming to mark him as a challenge to his authority. The ranger barely managed to dodge, but in the struggle, the hot iron pressed against his chest, leaving behind a painful brand. The searing pain sent waves of shock through him, but he refused to cry out or show weakness. As the Cattle King stepped back, a triumphant smirk crossed his face, believing he had silenced the ranger once and for all. But the look of pain quickly transformed into one of fierce determination in the ranger's eyes. This mark would not break him, instead, it would fuel his resolve to fight against oppression, solidifying his role as the defender of justice for all. The searing pain from the brand on his chest was a stark reminder of the Cattle King's brutality, but instead of cowering in fear, the Mesa Ranger stood tall and resolute. Clenching his jaw against the torment, he drew upon the strength of his convictions. The sight of the brand became an embodiment of his struggle, a mark that signified his unwavering dedication to justice and the protection of the innocent. As he returned to town, he felt a storm of emotions swirling within him, anger, pain, but most importantly, resolve. The ranger gathered the community and pointed to his branded chest as tangible proof of the battle they faced together. "This mark represents our fight against tyranny," he declared passionately, urging them not to be intimidated by the Cattle King's aggression. His spirit ignited a fierce determination among them, rallying ranchers and townsfolk alike to stand united. With every passing day, the ranger's commitment deepened. The brand became not a source of shame but a symbol of resilience. He organized patrols and encouraged ranchers to report any wrongdoing while ensuring that their voices were heard. His leadership inspired hope and courage amidst fear, transforming their community into a force that would not be undermined or silenced by greed. The upcoming confrontation was no longer just about him, it was for all those who deserved to thrive in peace on their land. In the days following the ranger's branding, the community rallied around him with unwavering support. Ranchers who once felt isolated and fearful began to come together, driven by the outrage of what had transpired. They gathered at the local saloon, sharing stories of their struggles against the cattle king's intimidation and voicing their anger over his ruthless tactics. Inspired by the ranger's bravery, they formed a united front, vowing to protect each other and their livelihoods. The ranchers made plans to improve security for their herds and organized patrols to watch for any signs of wrongdoing. Word spread quickly throughout the region, attracting attention from neighboring ranchers who had faced similar challenges. They, too, joined forces with the Mesa community in solidarity. The townsfolk also played a crucial role, offering their assistance in gathering supplies and resources for those directly affected by the cattle king's actions. Children contributed by making banners of support, while women organized potlucks to strengthen community ties. This newfound unity transformed fear into courage, creating a spirit of resilience among them. Together, they stood determined to confront the cattle king not just as individuals but as a powerful collective ready to defend their land and values against oppression. The upcoming confrontation loomed ever closer, now fueled by a shared purpose that would not easily be extinguished. As the community rallied in strength, an investigation into the cattle king's activities was launched, spearheaded by the Mesa Ranger and local ranchers. They pooled their resources, gathering evidence of the cattle king's wrongdoings, from eyewitness accounts of stolen cattle to mysterious late-night rustling operations. With each piece of information, suspicions turned into tangible proof. The ranger interviewed frightened ranchers who had previously kept quiet about the cattle king's intimidation tactics. Their voices began to rise in unison, recounting stories of missing livestock and borrowed cattle that never returned home. Maps were drawn showing the locations of previous incidents, and soon, a pattern started to emerge. In a powerful show of solidarity, the community organized witness testimonies and collected physical evidence, anything from hoofprints near fences to pieces of branded hides left behind. The urgency mounted. This wasn't just about personal losses but also about restoring justice to their land. As they compiled their findings, news of the investigation spread like wildfire through the region. Other ranchers joined in, emboldened by their neighbors' courage and eager to see an end to the cattle king's reign of terror. The scent of justice filled the air as they prepared to present their case against him, firm in their belief that truth and unity would prevail. The confrontation loomed closer, now backed by undeniable evidence. The day of reckoning finally arrived as the Mesa Ranger and the United Ranchers prepared to confront the cattle king in court. With a folder full of evidence in hand, the ranger stood proudly among his fellow ranchers, their faces reflecting a mix of determination and anxiety. They had gathered eyewitness accounts, photographs of hoofprints, and even pieces of branded hides, each representing the suffering caused by the cattle king's actions. As they entered the courtroom, the atmosphere crackled with tension. The cattle king sat smugly at the front, flanked by his loyal supporters and a high-priced lawyer, ready to dismiss their claims. But the ranger felt a surge of strength from the community that stood behind him. He glanced around at their hopeful faces and took a deep breath, knowing that this moment was crucial not just for them but for justice itself. When it was his turn to speak, he recounted the stories of loss and intimidation that had plagued their livelihoods. The ranger passionately detailed each piece of evidence, compellingly linking them to the cattle king's actions. As he presented his case, the once isolated ranchers became a formidable force in the courtroom, filled with hope that truth would prevail. The outcome hung in the balance, but they were ready to fight for what was right. In the end, the battle against the cattle king became more than just a fight for justice, it evolved into a testament of bravery and community support in the face of adversity. The Mesa Rangers' unwavering commitment to protect the innocent inspired not only the ranchers but also the entire community to stand up against oppression. Together, they transformed their fear into strength, proving that unity can overcome even the most formidable foes. The courtroom victory was a pivotal moment, demonstrating that truth and integrity could prevail over greed and tyranny. The Rangers' brand became a symbol of resilience, reminding everyone that sacrifice is often necessary in the pursuit of justice. As ranchers shared their stories, they fostered bonds that would last long beyond this conflict, reinforcing the importance of solidarity in tough times. This experience taught them that despite their individual struggles, they were not alone. Together, they could reclaim their land and values. The community emerged stronger, with newfound determination to protect each other and uphold what was right. As they looked toward the future, they knew that they had forged not only a stronger bond but also a legacy of courage that would inspire generations to come. The Mesa Rangers' journey was a powerful reminder that true justice is worth fighting for, especially when fueled by collective resolve.